I think with Jadon Sancho, we are looking at a real talent. We've known that from a very early age. He's always also been a very strong-willed player. You don't walk out on Manchester City at 17, having already walked out on, I think, Watford to go to City in the first place, but in his case, to go to Dortmund and thrive and play really well in Dortmund to earn this 75 million move back to United without being strong-willed. But there is a point at which being strong-willed becomes or gets blurred into being deliberately obstinate. And perhaps that's where we are with Sancho, that despite a number of managers urging him to think about his behaviour, about his conduct, about his attitude, he seems still unwilling to listen. He believes that he is right. Now, it may be that he is right, but when you've got managers like Rangnick and Southgate and Ten Hag and Solskjaer, and to a lesser degree the managers he had at Dortmund, all of them singing the same song, you have to think that Sancho is out of tune. What's clear is that Jadon Sancho has fallen out with Erik Ten Hag, and not for the first time, it has to be said. It's all about his attitude in training and elsewhere. Ten Hag basically gave him 3 months off last season after he was left out of the World Cup. And he went away and spent some time in the mountains to try and clear his head. And Ten Hag opted for the arm round the shoulder. It appears that didn't work. He's been unhappy with his attitude in training in particular, unhappy with his attitude generally. And he decided that it's a case of no more Mr. Nice Guy, and it's now time for the hard cop. And that appears to have been what happened. He left him out, made it crystal clear at the weekend after the Arsenal game that he was omitted, not through injury, but because of things that haven't been good enough at the training ground. And Sancho bit and went out on a limb, sent out a statement via his people, which castigated Ten Hag and United. And it's caused, as you may imagine, all sorts of ramifications within the club. United are trying to close it down, but you can't close down a story like this. It's going to rumble until there is a solution, which is either the reintegration of Sancho or potentially, with some of the international windows still open in Turkey and Greece and Saudi, for example, potentially, I think unlikely, but potentially with him leaving United. If you look back to the World Cup, he wasn't involved. And one of the reasons that he wasn't selected by Gareth Southgate was, surprise, surprise, because of his attitude. Southgate, we're told, was pretty annoyed with some of the things he did in training during the Euros. If you look back to 2021, he played and started and played well against Ukraine. That was his only start in the tournament. He came off the bench in the final against Italy and missed a penalty. But it wasn't about missing a penalty. Ever since then, he's just played the one game for England, which was against Andorra. Now, the talent is unquestioned. This is why he was fast-tracked into the England squad as a teenager, but the application has not been there. And Southgate wants good tourists. He's made that crystal clear. He never believed, or certainly came to believe, that Sancho at this point in his career was not a good tourist, was not able to be part of the unit in the way he wanted. And that is a massive reason why he's no longer in the England squad. My understanding is he went to France, basically a clear the air, clear your head situation, where he was given time off by the club to try to get himself in the right mental state. Now, that implies there are other factors. I don't know the ins and outs of the day-to-day situation, but it implies that there's extra things within Jadon Sancho's personal life and his career and everything else that needed to be addressed. But of course, you can't carry passengers in a Premier League squad. You have to have players who are committed. If a player is physically fit, they need to be mentally fit as well. And there is the issue. They need to be ready to play. And at this stage, certainly, Ten Hag does not believe that Jadon Sancho is ready to perform for him, ready to play for him. And he's been involved in a few games this season. But if you look at his United career, it's been fits and starts. There hasn't been a consistent series of performances or games. Now, that may be due to clashes with the managers, but at some point, it's got to be down to the player. It's three managers at United now: Solskjaer, Rangnick, and now Ten Hag. And under none of those, despite his clear and abundant talent, has he been able to get a permanent place in the starting side. But it's clear that Sancho is at best in the last chance saloon, and it may be that he's actually been booted out of it and there's no way back.